So I'm going to demo today a really important Excel skill that shows up in research all the time related to mail merges. And this is actually something that sort of integrates Word, Outlook, and Excel, but really would start here with Excel and sort of put this in context. This is part of the Excel Skills Academy of things that you probably need to know to be able to effectively do research and use Excel for that. And so I'm working sort of under the survey tools pieces, and we're going to be talking about mail merges today. And so I've built out my random sample database that I introduced in the previous module to include some additional information. So we've got names broken down as first name, last name. I've also added a title for Miss or Mr. We've got city, state, and zip code, which are all random. This is not sort of private personal information. It's all randomly generated nonsense information. I've also added a column for the researcher, who's sort of the primary contact, which we'll see why that's important later, along with a unique code for each individual. And so I sort of built out this larger database to sort of function as a mailing list of you could mail out a survey to folks doing this. And the way that that would work would be to go to Excel, go to Word and conduct a mail merge. And so if I needed to print labels that had the information in that database, organize as sort of a sticky label that I could peel off and put on an envelope, I could go to Avery, the label company, and download one of their templates that looks like this, that corresponds to the labels that I actually have in front of me. And I could use that to sort of merge in the information from that database. And so the way that this works is I would go over to my mailings tab and choose to start a mail merge. There's a variety of different types of mail merges. You can do letters or emails. I'll show a letter later, but emails work basically the same way and are actually really handy. You can also do envelopes if you were able to sort of have a printer that would feed envelopes in. You can do it that way, or you can do labels. And so I'll do labels. You can, if you don't have the template downloaded, you can sort of search through and find the appropriate template, but I always find it easier to just look up the template related to the labels that I have rather than trying to guess that way. And then you select recipients. And so we've told it we want to do a label merge. Now we're telling it that I need to use an existing list, an existing data set. And I will just navigate to that. I think it's under documents. And here's the information that I was showing earlier. There's three different sheets in that. There's the sort of intro, the sort of green and white screen. There's the skills list I have, and then there's the demo sheet. And that's the one with the data. And so I want to make sure that that's the one that's clicked. It also is worth noting the first row of the data contains column headers. If you don't click that, the mail merge process will actually print a label for your column headers. And so this is just saying, ignore that. You don't have to output a label for that. Okay, so I've just told it where to go to get the data. And Word has created a link to Excel, and I can start adding in fields. And so there's this insert merge field here. And if I click, I get a list of all those different columns in my data. And so I'm going to want to include the first name, and I'll put a space, and I'll include the last name, and then I'll put an enter. And that will bring that information into this particular cell exactly as sort of I'm organizing it. So if I put two spaces, there'll be two spaces. If I put two enters, there'll be two, vertical spaces between those items. I'll insert an address. I'll insert, actually, and I'll hit enter. I'll insert the city with a comma after it, because I think that's appropriate formatting, right? City, comma, state, space, zip code. All right, now I've built an address block in that particular cell, and I can click up here on preview results and kind of get a sense of what that will look like when Microsoft reaches into that database in Excel and says, hey, I'm going to sort of pull this information in and plunk it down here in this cell. And that looks about like what I want. There's nothing sort of oddly missing, except for my zip code number is a little messed up. I'll have to look at that. Okay, so I'm going to go back and get out of there. There's one more little quirk about this, and that's I don't just want to print one label, I want to print all my labels. And so I want to put this in more than one table or more than one cell. So I can just copy and paste it over. But when I go to preview results, Millicent Sullins shows up in both of those labels, and that's not what I want. I want each row, each label, each person to have their own entry. And so what I need to do is I need to tell Word that I'm done with information on that record and it's time to move to the next record. And the way that we do that is we go up to this rules option and we click on that to find the next record entry. And that just is a little sort of side code that tells Word that when you reach this point, jump to the next record. And if I were to copy and paste this over, and then I go up to preview, now it's jumping from Millicent to Sarah, like I would want. And so I've actually gone through the effort and the work of building this on a couple different, or on a full sheet, so I can show you sort of how this works in practice. So I've got my full sheet filled out with all the information I want, formatted how I want, at which point I just simply need to finish and merge. And so this is the sort of last item up here, and I'll click that and it says, how do you want this to work? Do you want to send this straight to a printer? Do you want to send out an email with this? Or do you want to create a document that you could sort of further sort of go through and edit and work with? That's typically what I do. For labels, I choose this edit individual documents option. It's going to ask what records do you want? I can click all and it'll grab all 100 from my database. Or I could say I just need the first 30. I'll just click all. And it takes a second and it generates for me, because I have that extra sheet, it's going to skip a page and print blank ones. But all 100 of the labels are going to be visible. So that's pretty cool and pretty useful. And you can see where in survey research, this ends up being a really powerful and commonly used tool. The other place where this gets used is in generating letters. And so I've written sort of a very brief template letter that might send out with a survey. And I can use the mail merge tool to try to customize those letters in a way that's useful and really can save a lot of time. So again, I'm going to start a mail merge. This time I'm going to choose letters. And I should also flag at this point that there's a mail merge wizard tool that'll kind of walk you through all these steps, but it's actually not that complicated. You just kind of start on the sort of left-hand side of the bar and kind of work your way to the right, adding information in. So I'm going to choose letters. And then it's going to say, okay, well, where do you want to get your information from? And so I'm going to select recipients, use an existing list. Again, I'm going to have to go and find that existing list under documents, and then I'll grab my Excel thing. Again, I want the demo sheet because that's where my database is. And now I can, if I wanted, I could go and look at that recipient list and click off any individuals or records that I didn't want to include. Or I can just start adding information. So before I just kind of built a block of all the cells I wanted to work with. Here I'm going to put those cells in sort of very particular places. And so after dear, I want to insert the title of the person. And then I want to give it a space. And then I want to insert the last name. And then maybe a colon. And so if I preview that, sure enough, it puts that information in. It looks more or less how I would want it to look if I was just typing that out on my own. Thank you for agreeing to complete our survey. You are awesome and we value your time. I'm very friendly with my communication, please enter the following anonymous code when you start the survey. This would be a way to know if a person's actually completed the survey or if I should follow up. So I should tell them what that anonymous code is. That's this unique code here. Big thanks for all you do, sincerely. And then again, who their corresponding researcher is going to be might be different. And so I'll insert the researcher name there. And now when I hit preview, I get all of that relevant information sort of popping up in the appropriate place. And when I'm satisfied that I've sort of inserted everything that I need, I can finish and merge. And so again, I'm going to choose to edit an individual document. If I just wanted to send this out as an email, I could choose send as an email, and it would say, hey, which of those columns in your data has an email address? I don't have an email address, so I can't really demo that, but I can edit the individual document, grab all my records, and it will generate a new document for me with 100 separate pages, each replicating that template that I set up for a particular research or for a particular record in my database. So this is, again, a really useful, valuable tool for doing some of the nuts and bolts practical stuff of research. And I hope that kind of having a sense of how this works and what this looks like kind of lodges in your head, so that when you get into one of these situations where you have to, put out a mass mailing as part of a research project, you don't spend the time sort of typing everything out individually, but instead you say, oh, I remember way back when we talked about mail merges, I'll look up a video and remind myself how to do that.